Mavuika is right around the corner, so today I thought it'd be fun to speculate just how she might break the game. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. To start, allow me to be clear. This is a speculative video, and nothing here is fact. I'm simply excited for the character and would like to share my thoughts on what she might potentially be like, so we can all engage in a hype discussion together. First things first, let's think about it like this. Every Natlan character has been filling in some sort of role that was previously missing. For example, Mualani put Burn Vape on the map, Kinich revived Burning from the Ashes, etc, etc, you get the idea. We understand the general song and dance with Natlan. It's unique in every way, shape, and form with its kit designs. The recently released Chaska only continues to prove this with how she's an Infusions DPS, which is a niche that was previously missing in the Animo DPS roster, or how Autoron saved Electrocharged. So naturally, I think it would be safe to assume that Mavuika is going to be filling in some missing gaps. Yet, which gaps are there that she could fill? The Pyro roster is one of the most fleshed out, complete with healers, buffers, sub-DPSs, and strong DPSs. Simple. I don't think she'll be a Bennett replacement per se. Hear me out. So many teams are getting good Bennett replacements these days. He's still an absolutely S-tier character in terms of meta viability. There's no doubt about that. However, he's not so much of a necessity anymore, at least not as much as he was back in the older days when everybody was an attack scaler and we had a far smaller support roster. Instead, I'm expecting an upgrade to Xiangling. Bennett has plenty of alternatives, whereas the Liyue Chef does not. A lot of folks think that upgrading upon her would be far too harmful to the meta because she's so strong already. The way I see it is that everything that Xiangling provides, I don't see why Mavuika couldn't improve upon these qualities, because listen, good pyro damage in an AoE, consistent pyro application, and excellent team flexibility. I don't see why the Pyro Archon wouldn't be able to do all of those things, but better. I don't think Mavuika will completely eliminate the Chef, since Xiangling applies a lot of pyro, and I mean a lot of pyro. If the Pyro Archon matches her application, then yeah, the Chef is cooked. But I doubt that they literally make an Archon a carbon copy of a 4-star character. Even so, I do think that we'll finally have another solid choice in the off-field Pyro sub-DPS niche thanks to Mavuika. I'm also somewhat afraid for how hard she's going to break the meta. Think about it. We haven't had a single bad Natlan character in terms of power level. Mavuika will definitely be following suit. The most likely outcome, if we're being entirely realistic, is that she's going to become best in slot for every Natlan DPS that's come out before her. It's happened every single time ever since Sumeru, so I think it's safe to assume that Hoya will be taking that route again. Mualani will most definitely be getting a buff thanks to the Pyro Archon's influence, which is another reason as to why I doubt that she'll end up being another attack buffer, as that wouldn't benefit the Shark Surfer. They're obviously not going to repeat damage bonus percent buffing, since we already got that with Lady Farina, so if she's gonna help the Shark Surfer's teams in any way, it'll probably be through Night Soul based mechanics. For example, providing her with enough Night Soul so that she's able to normal attack enemies 4 times each skill cast consistently. I'd imagine that she'd end up being a very comfy teammate playstyle-wise for the Shark Surfer too. I believe that she'll be kicking Xiangling out of Kinich teams as well, especially if they choose to go down a Night Soul based route when it comes to how she benefits Natlan characters. For instance, with Kinich, when playing him with Emily you can quite consistently shoot off 4 skill nukes per cast. However, 5 is actually possible. Mavuika could make it so that 5 is consistently available for him. Night Soul based buffing seems like the most reasonable way for the Pyro Archon to buff these characters. After all, it's a core part of the kits of all of these units. The only issue is that this could cause her to be quite a restrictive unit, making her only good for Natlan units where somebody like Farina buffed every DPS in the game. But I'm just gonna trust Hoya with this one and let them cook. Xilunen could potentially end up being a super interesting teammate for her. She generates Night Soul through crystallizing super quickly, so I'd expect those two to have some sort of synergy. Considering that Pyro is the element of damage, I do think that Mavuika will end up having quite good damage contributions, especially considering that she's a god of war, so the DJ's buffs will most likely benefit her too. I would not be surprised if she ended up being somewhat like Raiden, having the ability to off-field while also being able to on-field. I do hope that if they go down this route, that her damage will age well so she doesn't get downgraded into being an okay driver down the line. Chaska's a weird one. C1 Chaska mains can rejoice because this problem isn't going to apply to them. However, for all you C0 enjoyers out there, hear me out. She wants 3 different elements in her team, and Bennett is an incredibly strong buffer for her, not to mention that she heals, so he's pretty important for the sake of providing fanfare as Farina is around. So, who do you replace in this team? Bennett can't go, you need the heals and buffs. Farina can't be replaced with Xingqiu or Yelan because she cannot utilize proc-based characters. And we can't throw out her final Electro or Cryo slot for another Pyro at C0. Chances are, I think it will become another past Draconic Glory situation. It'll probably be worth sacrificing her final teammate element and running double Pyro due to how strong Mavuika will make Natlan teams. Sure, Chaska's 4th infused bullet will become RNG, but I expect the trade-off to be worth it. We'll have to see. I genuinely cannot say for certain right now because we have no officially released information regarding Mavuika, but this is literally just stuff that you can figure out from putting 2 and 2 together. I do still think that she'll end up being a Chaska buff. It'd be pretty weird if they randomly left her out. However, I do think that the Gunwoman C1 is going to increase in value even more once the Pyro Archon rolls around to take up a spot in Chaska's teams. When it comes to the idea of her being heavily Night Soul based, I will say while that does limit her viability, it'll also prevent direct power creep from happening. I do think that she'll probably end up with an Ascension passive or some constellations that lighten up her potential restrictions, but I can't say that for certain right now. This does make me wonder what she'll be like in non-Natlan teams. I hope she won't be completely limited outside of them. After all, there's a lot of potential here. I'm curious to see if she's going to upgrade Lenny's Mono Pyro teams in any way, or if she's going to end up replacing Kazuha in his Vape teams, or even seeing how she would do in Shiver's Overload teams would be pretty funky. Either way, all we can say for now on that matter is time will tell. She's such a high potential unit, so this stuff is genuinely riveting for me to talk about. I do hope that if she does end up having DPSing qualities, there'll be something to differentiate her from the likes of Arlecchino or Lenny. Those are our current 2 best power DPSs, and I seriously don't think we need a third. While it makes sense for every Archon to embody the true spirit of their element's respective role, I'm sort of worried about what a de facto Archon DPS would mean for the game's meta. Nuvalet's broken as he is, so making a DPS stronger than him sounds kind of unbalanced. Don't get me wrong, it's hype as heck at the same time, but I'd still like some degree of balance here. Oh, who am I kidding? It's an Archon. Balanced isn't exactly in the cards for a character like this. Either way, I do think that we have something neat to look forward to when it comes to your potential teams. Every single Archon in the game has ended up being very versatile in terms of the potential amount of teams that they can fit into, so I don't expect Mavuika to be any different. When it comes to your potential longevity, I feel like that with every Archon ever since the game came out, they've been progressively getting stronger. Farina ended up being the best character in the game, and I was somewhat worried that she'd fall off once we entered Natlan. However, that's far from being the case, because she works with essentially every Natlan unit barring perhaps Mualani. I somehow doubt that they're gonna make an Archon that's really good for a year but immediately dies afterwards. Do I expect her to become the next Farina? No, because I feel like Hoyo regrets her to some extent. She's the hardest Archon to write out of history. Every other Archon has dropped in value aside from her, who has only risen in value over time. But rest assured, she's absolutely going to be fantastic for all future Natlan units to come. I'm definitely afraid of what her constellations are gonna do. I'm 99% sure that they're either gonna make her do a crap ton of damage, remove any Natlan-based restrictions that she has, or do both. That future is quite frankly terrifyingly exciting. So some final thoughts. I fully expect Mavuika to break the game. Seriously, don't underestimate how strong that she's going to make specific characters. Mualani is already one of the most high potential DPSs in the game right now, and Mavuika's introduction into the game might make her into a possible Nuvalet rival. If the Pyro Archon doesn't end up buffing the Hydro Dragon somehow, that is. After all, Hoyo buffs him at least once per patch. Man needs those buffs, otherwise he'd be unplayable. Jokes aside, I'm super excited for the stream where her full finalized kit will be revealed. I can't contain my hype right now, so I felt compelled to make a speculation. My advice? Don't doom post immediately if she does end up being somewhat restrictive or best in slot for Natlan units, because considering how high potential the current Natlan cast is, I do think that the Pyro Archon will still be finding herself in S tier regardless. I have high hopes, I won't lie. Perhaps I'm hyping myself up a little too much for her C0 kit, but how could I not be excited considering the fantastic track record of the last few Natlan releases? I'm personally ready to witness all the upgrades that Mavuika is going to bring to all Natlan teams. Plus, her design is just really sick. She's shown her raw strength in the plot multiple times, so I doubt that Hoyo is gonna fail to deliver on her warlike power. I know that I'll definitely be pulling for a copy along with her weapon because I want to push my Kenichi up to the next level. That's my personal motivation at least. Mavuika hype mode has been activated. They have done everything right with his character so far, so I seriously hope that they don't mess up her kit. Come on Hoyo, I believe in you. It's an Archon, so at the end of the day, we should all know that she'll end up being utterly busted. I'd be shocked if she turned out to be a whatever unit. I'm sitting here waiting for her official kit reveal with bated breath. The pyro niche is one that has been oversaturated for quite some time, so we're definitely going to have to pull a unique stunt in order to differentiate it from the rest of the pyro cast. However, considering the experimental nature of Natlan kits and the fact that Night Soul based mechanics are sitting right there, ripe for the picking, I doubt that Hoyo's going to have a problem with that. But what do you all think about her? Will you be pulling for her 100%? Or are you feeling a little on the fence? Let me know down below in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and speculations. Hopefully this video was able to tell you some potential ways in which Mavuika could end up breaking the game. This has been Juice, signing out, and honestly, no matter what they do, beloved Venti's still gonna be my favorite Archon no matter what.